Hi everyone, my name is Deanna and welcome to my channel about stories that happen in life. Sit back, pour yourself a hot drink. I think this is going to be very interesting. Well, before we start, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a lot of new and useful videos. It seemed to Marina that her life was successful. She studied to be a teacher at the institute. Even then, she met a simple guy, Vadim. He proposed to her, and they got married. Sometime later, they had a beautiful baby boy, Maxim. An ordinary family, like everyone else's, none of them was outstanding. It seemed to Marina that her life was successful. She studied at the institute as a teacher. Even then, she met a simple guy, Vadim. He made her an offer, and they got married. Sometime later, they had a beautiful baby boy, Maxim. An ordinary family, like everyone else, none of them was outstanding. Marina worked at school as a teacher, and Vadim also worked there. Maxim went to kindergarten. One evening they were sitting at home in front of the TV, nothing foreboding trouble. Suddenly, somewhere there was a rumble. What is it? Marina jumped up and looked at her husband. Maxinka ran into the room. Vadim had no time to answer. The house began to collapse. It was very scary. The walls and ceiling just folded. Vadim, Maxim, the woman shouted. It seemed that everything was happening slowly. Everything happened in a matter of minutes. And now a crowd of people had already gathered in the street. Rescuers had arrived. A gas cylinder exploded in the entrance, and half the building just collapsed. Those residents whose apartments remained intact quickly evacuated, and the people who fell had to be found and pulled out of the concrete captivity. Marina came to herself. She felt on her lips the salty taste of blood. The girl was lying in an uncomfortable position. There was a huge and heavy slab on top, from which the rebar was sticking out. She realized that she could not get out of there on her own. Suddenly, the pain and fear went away. She thought about Maximka, and what about him? Help! Marina tried to shout, but only a wheeze came from her throat. She did not hear any work. The girl lay there, different thoughts were spinning in her head. Soon the body began to break so much that it was impossible. Ah! She screamed, but apparently no one heard her. Rescuers, with the help of special equipment, were clearing the area. They had to do everything with precision and accuracy because there were people under the rubble. Here they found an old grandfather. He gave no signs of life. Then they decided to organize 5 minutes of silence. This method appeared to the rescuers when once they could not find a small child under the rubble. At some point, the technique stood up, there was silence, and they heard the baby crying. Since then, such a technique entered the household of rescuers. Here and now, all the engines were silenced. No one spoke. After that, they managed to pull 4 people out into the white light. A little boy was able to get out from under the rubble. He was very scared. His hands were shaking. He walked down the street and called out to his mom, tears rolling from his eyes. "Mommy, Daddy, where are you?" He was walking. He didn't know where he was going. "Boy, who are you? Why are you so dirty?" A woman came up to him. "I don't know." He looked at her and cried. "Come with me." She put him on the bus, and they left in an unknown direction. The search for the men continued. A day passed, then another. The rescuers, not knowing tiredness, worked. Marina did not know how much time had passed. She did not understand what and where she was. Her whole body was so stiff that it seemed that there were no arms and legs. The girl sometimes lost consciousness, but when she came to her senses, she was very frightened. She did not stop calling for help, but there was no strength left. Finally, on the 5th day of the search, the woman was found and dragged to freedom. "How are you feeling?" Cameras and microphones of reporters stared at her. But Marina could not even open her eyes. The sunlight burned her eyes. "Where is my son?" She only asked in a very weak voice. "You had a son. We're interested in the rescuers." "Yes," she nodded, already in the ambulance. "All the children we pulled out were taken to the hospital, and you will be taken there as well." There, after the doctor's examination, you will be able to find your child, said one of the men. Marina lost consciousness again. She was quickly put into an ambulance and taken away. Marina woke up in the ward. She realized that she could not move. "What's wrong with me?" she asked when she heard the door open. "You have very serious injuries." The nurse approached her. "Tell me, what kind of injuries?" The girl wanted to lift herself, but she couldn't do it. "The doctor will be here soon, and you will talk to him," she said. She checked the drip and left the room. Marina was lying on the bed. Thoughts about Maxim appeared in her head again. She could not believe that such a thing could happen to her family. Footsteps were heard. Why hadn't anyone come to her room? "Where is Vadim?" ran through Marina's mind. What became of him? Why does no one say anything about him? "Hello," heard Marina. "Hello, are you a doctor?" Marina asked. "Yes," he nodded, but the girl did not see it. "What's wrong with me?" She couldn't even lift her arm. "You're under a very strong anesthetic, which is why you're having trouble moving. Both of your legs are broken, with dislocations in the knee. During the time you spent under the slabs, they took on an unusual posture. We had to fix it." She could feel the doctor touching her legs. "What's wrong with my face? Why do I have bandages over my eyes?" The girl couldn't understand. "It's worse here. If your legs we can bring to normal condition, then with the face things are more difficult," lowered his voice and said man. "Everything is very bad." Marina could not believe it. "I think so," he nodded. "Tell me, where are my husband and child?" She finally decided to ask about it. "I couldn't find anyone with the same last name as you in our hospital." "But how so? Because at home we were all together." Marina visited a terrible guess. And what if Maxinka is still there, under the rubble or in general? She didn't want to think about anything else. She heard that the doctor left the room, and Marina felt very bad. What had she done if fate had decided to punish her like that? The girl clenched her fists. She decided to herself that she would do everything to get back on her feet, find her son, and be happy. The doctors and nurses came very often now. They looked at Marina's hands and feet. One day they took the bandage off her face. "Could I not put it back on?" Marina asked. "No, you have to wear a bandage for now, at least on your head," the doctor said. But this time they left her eyes open. "Thank you for that." Marina smiled, although it was not good. Now she was lying in the ward and looked at the ceiling. There was nothing else to do. She saw her body lying on the bed, both legs on special stretches, her arm in a cast, the other just bandaged. But the most important thing for the girl was her face. What was wrong with it? Why had the doctor left the bandage on? "Hello," entered the man. His voice Marina had not heard yet. "Hello." She looked at him. "I came to examine your face," he told her. "Good." She raised her head a little. The man placed another pillow under her head. He sat down on the edge of the bed and leaned over the girl. He had a mirror on his head, which Laura usually has. Marina couldn't take her eyes off him. She watched the doctor remove the bandages, and then she squeezed her eyes shut. "What's wrong with you?" The doctor didn't understand. He followed her gaze and quickly removed the mirror from her forehead. "Doctor, tell me honestly what's in there." "What I saw was very scary," his eyes filled with tears. "I've seen worse," he continued. "You've been in a very difficult situation. While you were lying there, under the slabs, dirt and dust getting into your wounds, now you have to fix them somehow. You mind telling me?" She closed her eyes. "You'll see for yourself soon." He made some notes on the card and went to the exit. "How long should I stay here?" Marina looked at him. "I do not know. A couple of months for sure." He shrugged his shoulders. The girl again lay alone. Something was happening in her head. Thoughts were confused. Everything was mixed up. Maxim, Vadim, the explosion, the fall of the house. She clutched her eyes. Marina decided to do everything to get out of this hospital as soon as possible. The days stretched very slowly. Marina tried to sleep more to make the time pass faster. but at some point, her body began to refuse to sleep. Well, a month has flown by. The doctor came into the room. "Has anything changed?" Marina asked hopefully. "I think that these stretch marks can already be removed." He pointed to the construction. "I will be able to walk," rejoiced girl. "Well, you said it loudly, while on crutches and not for long distances. But still, the man dismantled the structure." "Thank you," Marina cried. From the face, bandages were removed, but she had never yet seen herself in the mirror. But what she could touch with her fingers horrified her. When the doctor finished all the procedures, Marina's legs were on the bed. She tried to move them to get them off the bed. She succeeded, but she was so tired that she decided to lie down for a while. Lying down for 30 days was taking its toll. The body didn't want to obey the girl. "Oh, you're trying to get up." A nurse entered the room. She brought crutches, followed by a wheelchair. "Yes, I wanted to try," Marina admitted. "Here, the doctor said to bring you both." She showed the wheelchair and crutches. "Thank you. You will not help me." Marina raised her head at the girl. Of course, she came over. "That's it." Marina moved into the wheelchair. "Comfortable?" asked the nurse. "It's fine." Marina showed her the class. "Shall I go, or do you need any more help?" The girl turned around. "No, thank you, go." Marina waited for her to come out. After that, the girl drove up to the closet that stood in the ward. Marina knew that there was a mirror inside it. She saw it when the doctor opened it. The girl opened the casement. It was a little scary. When Marina opened her eyes, she almost fell out of the stroller. There was a monster looking at her. She'd realized this before, but she hadn't thought it was that bad. Her nose and cheek were almost completely gone. She had touched the slab when she fell. The girl cried as she realized that she would never get a job like that. She thought about Vadim, but if he had seen her like that, he would never have approached her. She felt her face with her hands once more. "Doctor," she called loudly. The same young nurse who had helped her into the chair ran into the room at the same moment. "Why are you yelling like that? There's a call button," she pointed at it. "I know what's wrong with me. You saw it. Why didn't you tell me at once? And how could you not be scared?" Marina cried. "Calm down. I'll give you a shot," the nurse fussed. "I don't need your shots. I don't need anything else." She became hysterical. The nurse quickly drew the medicine into a syringe and gave Marina an injection. Then she called an assistant, and they moved the girl to the bed. Marina was asleep. "What's wrong with her?" The assistant looked at the girl. She saw her face for the first time, she said. "Then it is understandable. Everyone would be hysterical." They left the room. Another month passed, and all this time Marina found out whether plastic surgeons can do something with her face. "Marinovka, I think you can be discharged already." The doctor entered the room. "Good, thank you." This message pleased her. She filled out all the necessary documents, called a car, and went home. While she was in the hospital, she learned that the city authorities had allocated new housing for the victims. So now she was on her way to the new apartment. The girl entered it. It was unaccustomed. She looked out the window. Children were playing on the playground, and her heart squeezed. "Where are you, my boy?" cried Marina. She felt in her heart that he was not dead, and his body was not found. But where could he be? "Hello," Marina called in the evening in the office, where there were vacancies. "I saw that you are recruiting people to work at home." "Yes, but only we don't need anyone anymore," she heard in reply. Too bad. She hung up the phone. She had to do something to start working. When she learned about plastic surgery at the hospital, she found out how much it cost. These were such sums that Marina was breathtaking. She decided to learn some new business. But how to do it, she did not know. Then the woman decided to take up tutoring. She knew 2 languages and literature very well, so why not pass her knowledge to children? The very next day, the girl placed ads wherever she could. A week later, she got a call, and then another and another. She recruited students. Now there were children in her house 3 times a day. Marina came up with a hat with a veil. so that they were not afraid of her sight, so they practiced. One boy who went to her, he studied 2 languages at once, was so capable that Marina was surprised. Oleg, give me your mom's number. I'll call her, she once told the boy. I do not have a mom, he sadly replied. And where is she? Did not understand the girl. Dead, he cried. I'm sorry, I didn't know. She pressed him against her. And Daddy? She looked questioningly at Oleg. There, in the notebook written down, showed the boy. In the evening, Marina decided and dialed the number of Pavel Valentinovich. Hello, she said after his answer. Hello, he repeated. My name is Marina. I'm doing English and German with your son, said the girl into the phone. Oh yes, I've heard so much about you. It seemed to Marina that he was smiling. Oleg is a very capable boy. He should be given to a specialized school and sent to all the Olympiads, advised Marina. Yes, I've already thought about it, the man confirmed. I can advise you, Marina suggested. Thank you, that would be very helpful. After that, they said goodbye. Marina began to look for a school where Oleg could go to study. She carefully studied everything that was given to children there. Eventually, the girl decided, and she made a note in her notebook opposite Oleg's name. She was about to go to bed. The light was already turned off, and suddenly the phone rang. Marina saw Pavel Valentinovich's number on the screen. Hello, is something wrong? She asked. No, I just wanted to hear your voice. It has been on my mind all day, said Pavel honestly. I am pleased, said Marina, and thought about her face. What are you doing tomorrow? Maybe we can go somewhere and discuss the further education of my son, he suggested. No, I can't. I'm always busy. The girl was afraid. What are you talking about? You should always have a day off, he laughed. I cannot, said Marina sadly. If you mean your face, then do not think I do not care, he said. Where from? She could not finish. Oleg told me that you have something with your face. You constantly cover it, admitted Pavel. I see, she sighed. So where and what time we meet? Insisted the man. Let's go to the ice cream parlor near my house. She didn't want to go far. Okay, I'll be there tomorrow at 3, he hung up. Marina was shaking. What was this? A date? She didn't know what she would wear or how she would cover her face. The girl was so nervous that she couldn't sleep until the morning. But the body could not withstand it, and when it was already light, the girl fell asleep. She woke up. The sun was shining brightly in the window. Marina looked at the clock. It was already lunchtime. She nodded her head. She had no classes today. She remembered yesterday's call, and she felt sick again. Marina opened her closet. There were only a few things in there. She decided to wear jeans and a sweater. That way she would be comfortable. On her head she put the same hat. Now it seemed to her that the veil did not hide anything. Then Marina took a silk handkerchief and wrapped it around her face, as Bedouins do in the desert. Looked at herself in the mirror. It came out very pretty, only the eyes remained. So she went to the cafe. Paul was already there. He was sitting and looking around. When she entered, he immediately realized that this was the girl he was waiting for. Hello. He got up from his seat. Hello. She walked up to him. You look beautiful. He looked her over. Thank you. She sat down on the chair. What shall we order? Ice cream? He laughed. Marina nodded. She looked at the man, and she liked him. He was tall, blond, in a good suit, and he smelled good. When the order came, Marina tasted it, and at the same moment raised her eyes to Pavel. She realized that the handkerchief had fallen from her face. It's okay, he corrected it on the girl's face. Do you know what happened to me? She asked him. No, he shook his head. Let's just go back to being on a first-name basis. Okay, she nodded and briefly told him about the explosion and the collapse. Yes, I heard that story. His eyes became sad. What's wrong with you? Corrected Marina. Remembered Ozia, my wife. He looked at the floor. And what became of her? Marina did not want to bring up this topic, but since he started. She was in a car accident, instant death. He shook his head again. I'm sorry for your loss. She took his hand, and he immediately squeezed her fingers. I feel so at ease with you for some reason. Until yesterday, I hadn't socialized with anyone, much less the female gender. But your call stirred something in my heart, and I decided to meet you. He looked into her eyes. I'm glad to hear that. She lowered them. Let's meet again tomorrow, he suggested to Marina. Okay, she agreed. That evening, they did not talk about Oleg. Pasha went to see Marina off. They sat on a bench in their yard for a couple more hours. I told so much about myself in general, no one, he admitted to the girl. And I did not communicate with anyone after all this. She pointed at her face. I'll come by tomorrow, he said when she went into the entranceway. Okay, Marina smiled, but Pasha did not see it. The girl went home. She typed in social networks the name and surname of the man she had just met. There came out pictures of him with his son and wife on vacation. They were a great couple, but fate did not spare anyone. There Marina also learned that Paul is the owner of a large holding company, which made her hair a little stirred. On him, it was impossible to say that he was rich. Just a man, without the swagger and everything else. He called tonight. Hi, I miss you already, he said to Marina as if they had been dating for a year. I've been looking at your pictures on the internet, and it turns out you're not quite what you want to see, she told him. Why are you doing all this? Just like you're self-conscious about your face, so am I. I don't want people to think of me as a bag of money, he mumbled. I don't care at all if you have money or not. I called to talk about your son. Marina thought that Pasha accuses her of something. What are you? I'm not accusing you of anything. He tried to calm her down. Good, she sighed. Is our meeting still on? He was already scared. Yes, of course. We have to talk about Oleg sometime, she laughed. He arrived the next day in the evening. Marina, let me help you. Looked at her Pasha. With what? The girl was surprised. I want to give you an operation. He did not look at her because he was afraid of refusal. Okay, only on one condition, she said. Tell me, he turned to the girl because he didn't expect such an answer. You give me the operation, and then I give you the money in installments. She had long thought of taking a loan or something else. I agree. Pasha reached out to hug her, then stopped for a few seconds, saw that Marina did not mind, and hugged her. They drove through the evening city. It was very beautiful. To be honest, I've already agreed with everyone. I just need to make payment. Pavel looked at her. Thank you. She tilted her head. You're welcome, he smiled. They stopped in her yard. Pasha leaned over to the girl. You won't be disgusted. She looked at him. What are you talking about? He picked up her handkerchief and kissed her. The next day, Marina called all her students, and she said that she wouldn't be accepting anyone for the next couple of months. Pasha picked her up and they drove to the airport. The operation was not to be done in our country. Call me. Pasha saw her off. Okay, she waved to him. Marina flew to the clinic. She was welcomed there. It was necessary to undergo several procedures. The girl was ready for it. She fully trusted the specialists, knew that they knew their business, and would do everything at the highest level. Already after the first operation, the girl saw tremendous changes. She was ready for what the doctors would do next. A few months later, the girl looked at herself in the mirror. She touched her face and could not believe that it was her. Marina had changed a lot. Even those who knew her could not recognize the girl. She talked to Pavel every day she had to return, and he promised to meet her at the airport. Marina flew and smiled. She wanted to check whether he would recognize her. The girl got off the plane, walked down the corridor, and saw those who met her. She didn't wave or do anything else. She just walked straight ahead. She approached Pavel, who was standing and stretching his neck, looking at the girl among the passengers. Hi, she said to him. He turned around. You should have seen his face. Hello, this voice I will not mistake with anyone. He hugged her. What do you think? She spun around. You're unrecognizable, literally, he smiled. Thank you. She hugged him again. They got into the car and drove to her house. Marina, remember, you told me that your son together with you fell into that collapse? Looked at her Pasha. Yes, she tensed. I think I found him. Pasha looked at the road. Stop the car. Marina thought she was about to become hysterical. Paul stopped. He got out of the car, went around it, opened Marina's door, and pulled her against him. Shall I tell you? He looked at the girl. Yes, she nodded her head. While you were in surgery, I instructed the guys to find out everything about the situation. It turned out that your husband wasn't badly hurt either. He took a bad blow to the head, he had a memory problem, and he was treated out of town. Somebody saw a little boy running away from that house all dirty. That's what the guys are onto. They canvassed the area. A bus station worker said she remembered a woman that day who was with a boy who was covered in dust. He was crying. So where is he now? Marina clung to him. This I cannot say yet, but we are looking for. He hugged the girl. God, I knew he was alive, Marina cried. You're so beautiful. The man took her by the chin, and they kissed. I need to change my documents, Marina told Pavel the next day. Maybe for one change and the name, he paused, and the last name? What are you talking about? She turned to him and froze. Marry me. Pavel stood on one knee, a ring in his hands. You what? If you do not count those months when I was in the hospital, then we have known you for a few days, she laughed. So what? Why do we need more than that? I'm sure you're exactly the woman I need, Paul said. Okay, I'll think about it. The girl smiled. She gathered all the necessary papers. Marina went to the magistrate's court to file for divorce from Vadim, but was surprised when she learned that they had long been divorced. It made her feel bad, but then Marina felt relieved. There was no need to wait for anything. She could give Pavel consent. Hi, Pasha, she called him herself. Anything happened? He asked in a worried voice. No, I just wanted to tell you that I agree, she blurted out in a high-pitched voice. I'm glad, wait, I'll be right there, he hung up. She sat on the couch in her apartment and couldn't believe that it had only been a couple of years since that horrible incident, and she was doing so well. There had been a black streak, and now a white streak had begun. Pasha arrived very quickly, champagne and candy in his hands. When do you want to do the wedding? He asked the girl. I don't want a wedding at all. Let's quietly sign, and that will be enough. She looked at him. I knew you were the best woman. The young man kissed her. They signed. Now Marina was no longer there. Regina appeared. The girl wanted to start a completely new life, where she had everything new, starting from her face and ending with her name and surname. And where was the bus that supposedly took my son away? Regina looked at her husband questioningly. If I'm not mistaken, it went to Peter. Paul looked at her. I want to go there myself and find out everything. She looked at him pleadingly. It's been so many years. If my guys couldn't find him, you won't be able to. Pasha wanted to stop her. Well, it's possible to try. She was determined. Okay, let's move there for a while, and then we'll see. Pasha wanted to support his woman. What about your job? She looked at him. We are just a couple of months away from opening a new branch in St. Petersburg. That's where I'll be in charge. The man laughed. That's good. She came up and kissed her husband. Oleg studied at a school with a language bias. There was supposed to be a night's stay. The boy did not want to go with his parents, so he decided to stay and finish his studies. Regina and Paul went to conquer a new city together. The woman did not do anything to find her child. She had approximate descriptions of the woman and Maxim himself, only when he was very small. How old would he be now? Pasha looked at her. Soon to be 14, she answered. Quite an adult, Pavel muttered. They decided to turn to the local private investigators. They took all the information and started the search. Not even a month later, Regina got a call. It seems that we have found your son, said a man's voice cheerfully. Are you sure about that? She clarified. No, but we think it's him, the guy answered. Regina and Pasha got all the coordinates. The guy's name was Slava. He studied at school in the 8th grade. That's where Regina went to get a job. Hello, she came in and was stunned. Hello, are you the one who called about getting a job? Looked at her director. Yes, she nodded. Good, we just need a teacher of Russian language and literature. Ours is sick, said the director. Regina was accepted, and the next day she could go to work. You're some kind of mysterious, Pasha told her. No, everything is fine. She looked at the wall. Regina went to work. She liked that there were so many kids around. The old teacher snorted. They had a well-coordinated team, and here came a new girl. The girl couldn't wait for the lesson in 8A to start. She was so eager to see him. The bell rang, and she entered the classroom. Slava sat on the first desk, and Regina immediately recognized him. She taught the lesson, but she couldn't take her eyes off the boy. Everything went well. Regina decided to follow the guy, but at the second turn, she lost sight of him. Hello, guys. The new teacher greeted the children in the morning. They sat and listened. She told them something. Regina imagined that all this she said only to him, her son. Slava, can you stay late? She asked him. You left me yesterday, and the day before that, what did I do? He said. Nothing. I just want to talk to you. She sat him down at the desk. There were whispers in the teacher's lounge about the new teacher. They knew that she was always leaving Slava after school. The teachers called a concilium, headed by the principal. We believe that there is a corruption of minors, said one of the honored teachers. What proof do you have? The principal looked at her. Not yet, but I'm sure there will be some, she said. When they appear, then come back. He finished the conversation. The teacher was angry. She did not like the new employee. She did not teach the way the system required, and she was hitting on the boy. At that moment, Regina and Slava were sitting in the office. I want to tell you something. The teacher looked at him. Tell me. He raised his eyes. What is your mom's name? She asked. She is not my mom, but my grandmother, said the boy. Where is your mom then? Regina tensed. She died, the boy said quietly. Do you know how it happened? The girl asked. She jumped up from her chair. Yes, my grandmother told me. There was an explosion in the house, everything collapsed, and Mom and Dad were covered with concrete slabs, and I stayed, so she took me to her, said the boy. Son, I didn't die. It was just the circumstances. First, I was in the hospital for a long time. I was broken. Then my face was very damaged. I went to another country where I had surgery. I looked for you, but there were no leads. She ran up to him. Are you my mom? He looked at her in surprise. Yes, look, you have a scar under your buttock. You fell on a nail as a child, and we went to stitch it up. And there's a big mole on your head under your hair. Here, look, I have a picture of you as a child. She showed and told him everything. Mom, how I waited for you. I dreamed about you. I didn't believe you were dead. He hugged her. At that moment, the door opened and the teacher who had just talked about the seduction of minors entered the room. Here, look what I told you. They're hugging, and she's kissing him. She pointed at them with her hand. You've got it all wrong. Regina stepped away from the boy. That's my son. Yeah, what else can you think of? She came to our old school wearing a mini skirt and lipstick. What do you think, we're blind? They're huddled around the classroom door. That's my mom, the kid said. And you keep quiet. How could you give in to the persuasions of that profiteer? Call the police, the woman shouted. There is no need to call anyone. I hope that everything will be clearly explained to us now. The director came forward. And I'll explain. Regina stepped forward. And you, Vadim Anatolievich, listen. She emphasized his name in her voice. Why are you shouting like that? He said. Many years ago, our family had one unpleasant incident. There was an accident in our house. The walls collapsed. My son managed to avoid severe consequences, and my husband, Vadim Anatolievich, also did not suffer, but my wife had a bad time. All these years I was recovering and looking for my son, and Vadim Anatolievich became the director of a rundown school. He didn't care what had happened to his wife. He probably thought I was dead, divorced me, and lived his life. He didn't look for his son either, even though he went to his school," Regina finished. "Marina?" The principal looked at her. "Not Marina, but Regina," she corrected him. "I changed my name because I didn't want to live with the old one anymore." "I'm surprised." He wanted to approach. "Let you be ashamed in front of everyone around you that a weak woman was able to get out and find, and you did nothing for it." She poked a finger at him. "I'm very ashamed. I know I'm a coward. I was so scared then. I had to take a long treatment. I didn't want to know what became of you. It was like I had some kind of insanity." He stood and looked at the floor. "What's going on here?" Pavel entered the office. "I found him." Regina pointed at Slava. "I'm happy for you. And what is this hoarding?" He looked at everyone present. "This is my team." Regina smiled. They gathered and went all together from this school. Vadim stood and looked after the woman he had once loved very much. The man could not believe that Maxim had been at this school all this time. Why it hadn't occurred to him to compare him to the kid he remembered. When the father looked at his son today, he recognized him immediately. He grabbed his head and went into his office. "Hello." Regina and Pavel entered Slava's apartment. "Greetings." An elderly woman came out of the kitchen. "Bah, it's my mom," Slava shouted. "It can't be," she shrieked. "Everything can." Regina came up to her. "Thank you for raising a good boy." "How could it be?" I thought. The woman couldn't speak clearly. "It's okay. Don't be upset. If you want, you can come with us. We will take Slava," said Pavel. "I can't. I have cats." She pointed to the room. "And you can take them with you. Our house is big. There is enough room for everyone." The man smiled. Slava and Regina stood embraced. Neither he nor she could believe that they had found each other. "You go then, and I'll come to you later, or you'll have a grandmother in St. Petersburg." She invited them to tea. They all went to the kitchen together. Slava began to show what he was doing. His photos. He was just happy. Regina was talking to her grandmother. She was curious about how they met Maxim, how she took him, and what happened next. The woman told everything in order. It didn't even occur to her at that time to contact any services. She saw that the boy was not well, so she wanted to help him. "Thank you very much." Regina hugged her. "Oh, my daughter, if only I had known that everything would turn out like this," the grandmother cried. "It's okay. Everything will be fine." The girl smiled.